Okay, so it's Saturday night here in Tacoma, Washington, and instead of going out and having fun with my friends, I thought it would be fun to spend some time with people on YouTube. In this video, I want to show you an easy and straightforward method for managing and organizing your video files. This can also apply to photo files, but this is specifically how I manage my video files. I used to manage my files terribly, and by that I mean I would just take the files straight off the SD cards. The way that the camera named them was how I left them. I didn't even bother renaming them. And then I would put them in a folder. Sometimes I wouldn't even name that folder. And this led to absolute chaos because, you know, while you're in the moment, maybe you just finished a shoot, you know where everything is, relatively speaking, but a week goes by, a month goes by, and memory is subjective, so everything vanishes. So anytime I had to go reference that project, I just couldn't find anything. I didn't remember where anything was. Then I finally saw the light. I realized that if I did a little bit of work ahead of time, it can save me a lot of headache later on down the road. So over the years, over the last 12 years, I've developed this system. It's a very simple system. This system works. It's future-proof. It enables me, again, to reference footage. Doesn't matter how much time goes by. So I can have a video shoot, I name the files, I can come back a day later, a week later, a year later, 10 years later, and I know exactly where everything is. And the nice thing about it is you don't even need to see the thumbnail of the image. Just by looking at the text, at the list view, the footage will tell you exactly where everything is. Doesn't that sound nice? My hope is that after you watch this video, you will be much better at file organization. And then you'll just be a generally happier person and people will enjoy being around you more. Because that's certainly what happened to me. For this method, you're going to need a couple different things. Number one, you're going to need a memory card with video files on it. This could be an SD card or a micro SD card, doesn't really matter. You're also going to need a computer and a way to read that SD card. So an SD card reader, or maybe it's built into your computer. And finally, you're going to need at least one, but probably two hard drives. You're going to use one as your working drive. This is where you're going to transfer all the files to and rename them on this. And then you're going to back it up because that's good practice also. So I like these laissez drives because they're very rugged, they're very fast, and they're very compact. So these are my hard drives of choice, but you can use any hard drives you prefer. All right, let's hop to it. Okay, so the very first thing that you want to do is you want to plug your SD card into your SD card slot reader, and you also want to plug your working drive into your computer. Today I'm working on a Macintosh. This is a Mac Pro, the trash can, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in. Now, as a caution, I never plug my backup drive in right away. That's something I do later on down the road because I want the path of least resistance from the SD card to the working drive. So when I'm doing a simple task like naming files, I don't want to muddy the water and potentially accidentally save some files onto, you know, a different place, a third place. So I just leave it unplugged, and that just keeps things super simple. Once we have the SD card and the drive plugged in, we're going to open a Finder window and we're going to navigate to the files on the SD card. So right here you see we have 184 items, 7.63 gigabytes. So these are the files that I shot. And we're going to drag this over to the left, to the right, other right. We're going to open another Finder window. And we're going to navigate in that Finder window to the working drive, where I have some pre-saved stuff from other shoots. We're not going to worry about those. So the very first thing that we're going to do is on the working drive, we're going to create a new folder. And we're going to title this folder something that's applicable to the video shoot that we just completed. Now I know that this was sort of a snowboard competition at White Pass Ski Area. It was called Castle Jam. So I'm going to title this folder Castle Jam 2019 because it's very unlikely that I'm going to go to another Castle Jam in 2019. So I think that this name is going to be timeless. The ultimate goal here is to really name your files in such a way that you will never be able to confuse them for anything else as long as you shall live. So once you have your folder named, you're gonna open it, and you're gonna take all of the files on the SD card, and you're gonna copy them into that new folder that you just created. Wabam. Okay, now the computer says this is gonna take 53 minutes. Obviously, we're not gonna sit here that whole time, so I'll see you back here once it's done transferring over. Okay, so 56 minutes later, we're back. All the files are transferred. I always double and triple check everything, so we're gonna go into Castle Jam 2019, the folder we just created an hour ago, and we're gonna make sure that, look at 184 items were transferred. Uh-oh, something's not right. Oh, never mind, that's just the folder, the size that it was available. Yep, so 184 items were transferred over. That is correct. And as you can see right now, all of the items are named the way that the camera named them. So, you know, how I used to do it before is I would just leave it named this way, and P1600013 doesn't really mean anything to me right now. It certainly won't mean anything to me a year after this. And so if I just leave it as is, I'll never know what this file contains, and it'll just be a huge pain in the butt later on down the road. So we're gonna change that in this video. So the very first thing that we're gonna do once our files are copied is we're gonna create some new subfolders within Castle Jam 2019. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a folder called Photos. And this is where all my photos are gonna go. I'm gonna create another folder called Videos. This is where I'm gonna place all my videos. Folder number 3 is gonna be titled with the name of the the video editing software that you currently use. So I use Premiere Pro. It's 2019, so I'm gonna name it Premiere, Pro CC 2019. And the reason I'm so diligent with this naming is because I'm gonna save all my Premiere Pro files in this folder, all the auto saves, all the cache files, and Premiere Pro tends to release new versions periodically, and I always want to know which version I edit in so that later on down the road, if I go to upgrade, if I update my software, I'll know what I'm going from and where I'm going to. This is just it future-proofs my projects so that I know exactly what needs tweaking or fixing. Okay, so when I have my files created, the next step is to go into List View and then organize your files by kind. And what this is going to do is it's going to basically show you all of the images and all of the video files. Now my imaging, how I name my images is a different video. It's a different structure, so I'm not really going to touch on it here. So just for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of the image files, and I know they're raw files because of the extension .rw2. So all of those, here let me just show you, all of those are images that I took, right? This is actually good. I always like to double check just to make sure that they truly are images. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all of my images because I'm not going to be naming them in this particular session. And once all of those are selected, I'm going to drag them and stick them in my photo folder. Once they're in the photo folder, I'm going to click on Photos, click on the photo folder, go in there, and I'm going to create another subfolder called Original Photos. And then I'm going to select all of the photos that I just copied into the Photos folder and throw them in Original Photos. And the reason I do this is because I always like to just have all my originals just unaltered in a separate folder. Should anything ever happen, I can always reference these photos later on. Programs like Lightroom or Aperture claim that they don't disrupt photo files in any way, shape, or form, but this has burned me in the past when I haven't done, made an original files folder. So just as like a good practice now, I always create an original photo folder and store all my shot photos there, as well as in Lightroom, etc., etc. Okay, so now all our photos are taken care of. And as you can see, we have 73 more items. All of these are video items. And that's going to be really within the scope of the video that I'm going to talk about from here on out. We are going to leave list view again. We're going to right click and just kind of clean everything up by name. And now you can see that we have the folders that I created here at the bottom, as well as all of the video files that I shot on that day of Castle Jam. And just, you know, in case you're completely novice, if you click on Files on a Mac and then you hit the space key, space bar, it'll let you preview the files really quickly. It's much easier than going through and actually opening the files and looking at them. So that's like a little pro tip. Okay, so at this point we're just going to start naming the files. And the way that I like to do that is I like to come over here to this little slider and I like to increase the thumbnail so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Sometimes this speeds things up because, for example, I can come over here and look at this guy and I know that it's like a green skier, so I might name this file green skier 1. So just increasing the thumbnail size might expedite this job a little bit. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it up so that all the files, again, fit within the Finder window. Now, here is how I name my files. So, the name of the game is to make it as transparent as possible so that your future self, 10 years down the road, will be able to just look at the name of this movie file and know exactly what it is. So, the first thing I do is I preview it. Oops, I'm zoomed in. And right away I notice that it's filmed in slow motion. So that's going to be very important. Here we have a skier. He's about to go off a jump. What's he doing? Oh, looks like a little 360. Right away, nothing about this image is screaming to me that it needs to be like cataloged in a very specific way. It's just kind of general images of people going off jumps. So the best way that I'm going to remember this is I'm just going to name it Castle Jam. And then, so I basically name it exactly what the event is called, because I will always know what Castle Jam is. And then to key myself into the fact that it was filmed in slow motion, I'm gonna actually write slo-mo. That's kind of like a little code that I've developed for myself that tells me that it's a slow-mo clip. And then I always just add 1 to the very first clip. Even if there's only 1 clip in a series, like, you know, for example, maybe I just film a water bottle in the snow and I know that there's no more water bottles that I filmed that day, I will always put the number 1 at the very end of that file, because should I film another water bottle in the future, I can name that 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. So does that make sense? So I basically name it Castle Jam Slow 1 because in the future, you know, if I go to list view, I will just from the name be able to identify what that clip is. And this has just been absolutely invaluable to me. All right, let's keep going. So then, because I know that there's going to be a bunch more clips that are likely going to be of that same nature, I'm just going to copy the first part of that name. And I'm just going to start very meticulously going through the clips and seeing and naming them exactly as I see them. So for example, here's another clip. More jumps. This guy is going off a rail. Let's see what he does. Sick board slide, dude. Awesome. I like it, but it's generally the same kind of stuff. I'm going to put it in a sequence. I'm just going to copy that previous name in there, Castle Jam Slo-mo, and I'm going to give it the number 2. So now we're creating like a little series. It's going to be Castle Jam 1, Castle Jam 2. Let's see what this one is. Same thing. Slow motion. It's going to be a part of my series. So I'm just going to copy paste 3. Same thing. 4. And I'm just going to go down the line. 5. 6. 7. Oh, see? You got to be a little careful because this is no longer in slow motion. This is a time lapse. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to change the name of it to Castle Jam time lapse, and for time lapse I use the suffix TL, and then again I'm going to do -1. So see what I did there? So I have Castle Jam slow, Castle Jam slow-mo. That tells me that it's Castle Jam and it's in slow motion. But this one is Castle Jam TL, which tells me that it's Castle Jam time lapse. And another thing maybe that is worth mentioning is that I like to use hyphens. So Castle -Jam -TL -1. This is just a personal preference. I also like to capitalize each letter because I feel like it makes the text pop more, and then I can more easily read it. You might choose to use all lowercase. You might choose to use a period in between each word instead of a hyphen. That's your own personal choice. So this is another slow-mo clip. Oh, this guy is going off. I think he's gonna bonk the tower. Bonk. And then he goes off and maybe eats a little crap later on. So now we went back from time-lapse to slow-mo, which means that I can come over here and I can copy this and just continue my series. Ah, see? All right, now there's a bunch of kids on a mound, so what's the easiest way for me to remember that? Kids -on mound 1. And I know a few more of those are going to be coming up, so I'm just going to copy that and keep going. Oh, so here's something tricky. It's kids on a mound, but it's a time lapse. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy paste kids on a mound, then I'm going to add the suffix time lapse TL, and I'm going to add the number 1. So let's zoom in and show you what I did. Again, here's kids on a mound. It's just normal footage, 30 frames per second. Kids on a mound 1. Then I come over here. This is a time lapse. Kids on a mound time lapse 1. It's perfect. 10 years down the road, I'm going to know exactly what both these clips are. On we go. Still kids on a mountain, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy it. And now this is kids on a mound 2. These are still kids on a mound. I'm going to just keep going with that series. Kids on a mound 3. Oh, that shot is dirty. It has like this thing is in front of it, so that's going to go straight to the trash. I'll never use that shot. Kids on a mound 4. So you see, it's a very meticulous process, but the sacrifice that you make up front will just pay off way more in the end. So, you know, it's not my favorite job to go through and name these files, but it's a very important job because it saves me lots and lots of headache later on down the road. Here we go again. So this is a time lapse. I can see people moving really fast, and I already started kind of like a Castle Jam time lapse series. So I'm going to come over here and copy that name. Oops, opened it up. And I'm just going to start pasting as Castle Jam time lapse 2. Oh, here we go, back to slow-mo. You know what that means? I'm going to go up here and I'm going to copy that again. And we went up to slow-mo number 7. So this is going to be Castle Jam slow-mo number 8. Number 9. Ooh. So this is Kids on a Mound, but it's filmed in slow motion, something that I haven't seen yet. So in order to kind of note that for myself later on, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna hit copy Kids on a Mound, because that's what that is. Oops. I could probably get better at screen capturing, but hopefully this will work. Okay, so I copied Kids on a Mound because they are on a mound, but I want to tell myself, my future self, that it's in slow-mo. So I'm gonna add my suffix slow-mo, and then I'm gonna hit 1, because it's the first one of its kind in this series, right? Ooh, okay, so here we go. This is still Castle Jam, but I know that for the bulk of the day I was on the other side of this castle, and so this is the front side of the castle, which means that one way that I can easily remember this is I could maybe tell, I can title it Front Side Slow-mo. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Front Side Slow-mo. Number 1. See what I'm doing there? I'm just kind of mixing it up so that future Sergey will know exactly what's going on. More front side. This is number 2. Number 3. Number 4. I'm going a little quicker than I usually would for the sake of this video. If I were doing this on my own, I might go a little bit slower and look for maybe specific, just kind of scribe through the footage a little bit more, just in case I would catch something. Like if somebody does a crazy backflip in one of the scenes, I might title it, I might deviate from the sequence and call it backflip slow-mo number 1, just so that I can easily find that later on. But this should show you how I organize my files just fine and give you an idea of how to save yourself problems in the future. Okay, so this is still the front side of the castle. It's still in slow-mo. We got a skier popping off one of the towers. I'm just going to continue that sequence. Slow-mo number 7. Slow-mo number 8. Okay, here we're still on the front side of the castle, but I remember this shot. I really wanted to get kind of like a nice shot of the Castle Jam, as well as some footage of the Pepsi, the sponsor. So I'm actually going to deviate from front side slow-mo, and I'm just going to I'm going to title this Castle Sign. And then hyphen slow-mo number 1. And so what this does, Castle Sign slow-mo number 1, this tells future Sergey that when you need a shot of the actual sign to plug the event, you can reference it in this clip right here. Future Sergey is automatically very happy because he knows where everything is. I'm going to copy that because it looks like from the thumbnails a few more signs are coming up. Yep, that's true. So this is going to be Castle Sign number 2, Castle Sign number 3. Oh man, that's going to hurt. Look at this. Ooh, don't do that. You got to clear the knuckle. Okay, that's Castle Sign number 4. And now, by the thumbnails, judging by the thumbnails, you can see it goes from the front side of the castle to a crowd of people. Let's see what this crowd of people is doing. Okay, so just watching that little bit tells me that I'm just going to title all of the crowd shots as crowd 1. So future Sergey will look at this and know automatically that it's a crowd of people. We're going to go crowd 2, crowd 3.
We'll have a few that will be handed out thanks to Pepsi and Kickstart.
1. Okay, these guys are drinking beer. We're going to title that beer 1. That's pretty easy.
Where's Casey?
We got 2 snowboarders. I'm going to throw that in crowd. So that's crowd 4.
Castle, the better. So
Crowd 5. The only thing that I'm doing is I'm just titling these files in a way that makes logical sense to me. Now for you, this might look something different, and that's okay. You do you, boo. I'm just showing you how I do it. Okay, we have
start around 3:15.
just snowboards in the snow. So guess what I'm going to call it? Snowboards in snow. Number 1. And perfect example right here. You can see that this is the only clip of this nature. There's no other snowboards in the snow. There's some snowboards on a rack here, but that's different. So snowboards in the snow still gets the number 1 behind it, because maybe someday I'll go through and I want to pick up some B-roll for this particular event, and I may want to shoot some more snowboards in the snow. At that point, I can just continue this series as snowboards in the snow 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Okay, on we go.
But ask me what actually motocross, how it used to be. You are about how good you are. So
Tricky. So this is the front of the castle in this scene, but it's people raking the castle, getting it ready for the competition. So I'm going to name this Castle Rake. How do you spell rake? Rake. Like that. Castle Rake 1. So now I know that this is employees getting the castle ready for the Castle Jam just by the name. And this is going to be Castle Rake 2, Castle Rake 3, and you can see just by the thumbnails that's expediting my process significantly. Here I need to make a decision. That is both a crowd and it's also a lodge. I'm going to probably name this Lodge 1. Let's go white pass, so it'll be WP Lodge 1, because I may want a shot specifically of the lodge when I go to edit this footage, and if I have the name Lodge in it, I'll instantly be able to see it in the lineup. So I just, right there in doing that, I just made this clip super special and easy to recognize. That's more castle raking. We're going to call that Castle Rake 4. Oh, that's a short clip, and I'm going to delete that right away because I don't want that later on clouding my judgment. So this is more slow-mo. Yeah, sick air. All right, so back to the slow-mo. So we come up here and Castle Jam Slow-Mo 8 was the last clip that we named. We're going to continue that series with Slow-Mo 9. Oh, that one's already taken. I was wrong. This will be Slow-Mo 10. Okay, so this is Castle Jam, but it's no longer slow-mo. So I'm going to just name it Castle Jam 1, because we haven't started that series yet. So now, Future Sergey, I keep referring to Future Sergey, which is a little bit weird, but hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. So Future Sergey will know that Castle Jam Slow-Mo is exclusively slow motion footage, and Castle Jam with no suffix at the end is just regular 30 frames per second, which is like non-verbal communication. Oh, and we're back to slow-mo. Sergey from the past could have done a little bit of a better job shooting things consistently, but that's the subject of a different video. Okay, this is another slow-mo. This is slow-mo 12. More slow-mo. Slo-mo 13. Slo-mo 14. And we're back to the mound. These are kids on a mound. So guess what? We're going to go back to kids on a mound. We're going to copy the first part. Kids on a Mound 4 appears to be the last clip that I named, so we're going to name this Kids on a Mound 5. Boom. Again, this is Castle Jam and it's not in slow-mo, so I'm going to name it Castle Jam 2. 2. 3. 4. Ooh. So this is like the big reveal shot. I was kind of hiding behind a snow mound and then kind of lifting the camera and trying to catch somebody doing something sick off one of the jumps. And I definitely want to tell my future self to make note of this, so it's going to have a different name to it. This is going to be called, let's call it Castle Peekaboo 1. So right then and there, Castle Peekaboo, I know exactly what that means. A year from now, I'll still know exactly what that means. Oops. And we're back to Kids on a Mound, but from a different angle. So that one is going to be Kids on a Mound 6. Kids on a Mound 7.
After his dad.
I'm going to call those Castle Jam again, because they're not slow-mo, they're not time-lapse, they're just regular style. Castle Jam 5, we'll call it. Boom! Awesome. Castle Jam 6. Castle Jam 7. Now we get to the other snowboards. So from being at the event, I know that this was part of the demo tents that I shot. So I'm actually just going to name those Demo Tents 1. So that future Sergey will know, hey, when you need a shot of demo tents in their various different aspects, here they are, right here. Demo Tents 2. That's also a demo tent. It's like this cool little gas thing, little gas fireplace they are running. So that's going to be part of that series 2. Demo Tents 3. Back to crowds. Let's see what I ended it with. Crowds 4, crowds 5. Oops. I like people. Crowd 6. Back to the demo tents. So we'll copy that again. There's a lot of copy pasting. This is demo tents 4. And we're down to our last 6 clips that we need a title. I'm just going to call these Castle Jam because that's what they are. Just totally normal 30 frames per second footage. Oops. And the nice thing about Macs and probably PCs at this point is that they won't let you name things the exact same. So if you accidentally mess up and the file name already exists, you don't have to worry about it. See, back to demo tents. So I'm going to go back up here and get another demo tent. That is demo tent 5. And then I'm going to go for the last 3 files back to Castle Jam. 10, Still Castle Jam. I know this is kind of probably boring and way too long, but my hope is that when I do it over and over again, it'll ingrain it in your system and you'll learn better. Okay, so at this point, all of my files are named. So I'm just going to go up here and clean up my name. And I'm also going to go into list view to show you how sexy all of this looks. Look at this. So I have 3 files. I have my photos. They have my original photos in there. Damn, that's sexy. Then I have my Premiere Pro folder. It has nothing in it currently because that's where I'm going to save my Premiere Pro files when I get to that point. Not there yet. And then I have my videos, and then I have all the files that I just named, which are video files. So I'm going to select all of those files, and I'm going to stick them in the videos folder. And damn, that looks good. Look at that. So on my working drive, I click on Castle Jam 2019. And I clean everything up so that they're right at the top. Let's try this again. On my working drive over here, working number 6, I click on Castle Jam 2019. There's 3 subfolders. One has my photos in it, but damn. One has nothing in it because it's the Premiere Pro folder. It will eventually have something in it. And then my videos are all organized so that I'll always know what the heck I'm doing. And when a client, you know, sometime down the road says, hey, can you please send me a few more files from the event, I'll know exactly how to find them. And this just makes me so freaking happy. So we're almost done. The last thing that we need to do is we need to back up our footage. And to do that, let's go ahead and eject the SD card, because again, I want to create a path of least resistance. My SD card is ejected. Now I'm going to plug my backup folder, my backup drive into the computer. A fun little fact, I color code my drives. So in addition to naming them on the computer, I also name them on the drive themselves, because it's really easy for me to kind of misplace them or just like plug the wrong one in. And then I also like to color code them just for a visual reference. So all my working drives have this like goofy little colorful tape on them, and all my backup drives have this polka dot tape on them. And so for me, that kind of helps not make that mistake. Because when I manage files, I want to be as diligent as possible. Okay, so again, let's start by opening a Finder window, and we're going to go to the working drive. We're going to open a new window and go to the backup drive. Currently, they don't mirror each other. And then there's a piece of software that I really like for doing my backups. It's called Carbon Copy Cloner. I really like this software because it'll tell you exactly, it's the easiest way to copy your files, and if anything goes wrong, the software will tell you. You can tell this isn't a paid ad because I'm still using the trial. Carbon Copy Cloner, sorry about that. Okay, so once we're in here, we're going to clear the previous thing, and it's just super easy. We're basically going to come over here, we're going to select our source. That is going to be working drive number 6. Then we're going to come over here, select our destination. That's going to be working drive number 6 backup with the suffix BU. And then all we have to do is hit clone, and the drive will literally clone itself. And then my files will be very well organized, and they're going to be stored safely on 2 drives. I'll probably end up backing them up a 3rd time later on down the road. And that's essentially how I manage my files. So hopefully you found this helpful, and hopefully it'll help you in your career as you develop as a photographer, videographer. And for more videos just like this that are completely different, subscribe to this channel, Boutenko Films.